Live on a Friday, November 10th. This is the first ever episode of Anytime with Ken and Alden. And here we are. Hey, friends. I almost removed you from the stream to start, Alden.
We're breaking up, actually. We're going to start this by ending the friendship, and then we'll figure out later. Wow.
Hey, everybody. Hey.
Episode one. Anytime. It's not mornings. It's not afternoons. It's not evenings. It's anytime.
It's anytime. And this is a show that's going to, be a lot of fun, we hope, but also serious, also maybe poignant, and also just two absolute jackwagons talking about the world because all that stuff matters. This is where my heart is. And Alden, I know this is where your heart has been for a while.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a place where the goal is to be able to bring the same sort of discussion that, frankly, built our friendship in real life in different galaxies that we can talk about now, and we'll get to that later.
I'm a Star Wars fan, and I like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. If you got a sword and want to fight, I'm on your side.
Star Wars, it's back. We're so back. So the strikes are over. We'll get to that, but this is our new home to be able to bring sort of our text messages to life and to talk about things that necessarily don't adhere to a fandom, or they're a little bit more personal or uncomfortable or political or worldly.
Worldly indeed. Our tagline for right now, I love just throwing taglines into the wind and seeing what sticks. But this is a live look at what makes the world spin: politics, world events, and yes, pop culture, because there's the business and the politics of pop culture, and also some fun stuff along the way. Some housekeeping up top for those. Thank you if you're watching here on YouTube on my channel, and I put a pin in that right now, or you're watching on Facebook. I put this as a dual stream, Alden, to Facebook, because I figured, you know what? Maybe my old racist friends from my job will want to a political talk show. Here we go. Sean Sully checking in live, saying politics, nerds. Lord Romo's there. Jared the Dark Jedi, wearer of some of the best shirts in the fandom. Trey Mitchell here. A lot of people checking in. My buddy Kingsport Cal. The housekeeping up top, and I'm not going to be the one talking all the time. Unfortunately for you, Alden will have a voice in this show. We are live on my YouTube channel, but here's the thing, and I know it sounds in my head, I fear it's complicated. We are live here because this is a channel that is monetized, and we want to build this show out, build it as, dare I say, a brand, as if I'm some sort of Republican, elected Republican official from Colorado who just wants to build her brand. Go eat it, shooters. We're on my channel. But we do have an Anytime with Ken and Alden YouTube channel there for you all right now to subscribe to. If I was smart, I would have put it in the links. I don't remember if I did. It's been one kind of a hellish kind of week in my life and your life as well. But that is where we're there. You could find the socials as well, and then you can link. We're trying to build that channel, which will have rebroadcast, full episode segments, supplemental content, Alden, while we broadcast from my home right here, until we're able to move over there in a monetized fashion.
You said it. You said the C word. You said content.
Content.
Oh no, we're making content.
Okay, no. Let's dive into that. All right. We're gonna come back to that because you have some things in the script we might want you to say. I can't remember.
Yeah, we'll get to the content creators, the real heroes of the strike. There should be a ribbon for people that didn't talk about. Yeah, there should be a ribbon for people that didn't talk about the space whales while people were worried about how they were going to afford their homes and their meals. Truly the greatest. I am extremely excited to be here talking about all of this stuff. The rundown, I've been looking at the rundown just anxiously this entire time. And yes, I will joke about the content word, but it is. And we've got plans on plans on plans. You don't want to throw all your cards out there, but yeah. Clips channel There will be standalone interviews, ideas that come to us, and we're excited to expand that out and to bring you along on the journey. I feel like a boss that just cut everyone's pay but insists that we're a family. Like, come on the journey with us. Let's have a pizza party.
I worked at a digital media company where this the guy who really loved crypto, I'll give him a lot of credit. He gathered us around for a staff meeting and said, people say work is like family. We're no family here. And it was one of the only times I was like, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take
That's
that.
valid. It's like that meme of worst person you know just made a great point.
It's kind of it. It's kind of it as well. Yeah, Alden, well said. And yeah, I joke about the content word. I get it. I think it's, and we're gonna talk about it in more serious fashion, where sometimes words and phrases start one place, they end somewhere else, and say sometimes have dual or even quad meanings to people or the world. Content. We're doing content. I don't mind being a content creator. I just think that word's been monetized by so many corporations and then dumbed down by some of the people that get involved with it, who end up being sometimes the most successful ones. But I don't have a bitter bone in my body towards the word content. It just makes sense. So if I accidentally slipped, I apologize to you, Alden. I know you want to be an artist with me, but we're content creating right now.
I think Martin Scorsese is never coming on anytime as a guest. We might get Francesca Scorsese, a TikToker, but we're never getting Marty. He's not coming on after we said what we just said.
Yeah, setting up some of the things coming your way on this show, not just this episode, but going forward. We will have correspondents, we'll have guests. It's not just going to be us. In fact, sometimes we're gonna have some serious discussions, maybe today and every episode, that have you and I talking about it, but our perspectives is not the only one out there. We're just doing what I think, like you said, we do in our text messages, or what I do every morning, looking at the world, having thoughts, opinions, fears, not sure what to say sometimes. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. It is just a chance to kind of get involved in the world. And I came to that point by talking about Star Wars. When I started my Star Wars content creator journey, Alden, I liked the whooshing lightsabers and speeder bikes and the action, and I ignored everything else, even though George Lucas would have told me I was doing that wrong. And after 9 years of discussing it in depth and still going with Joseph Scrimshaw and Jennifer Landa, Star Wars is not kind of political. It is politics, because politics is how we see the world and how we decide to help everyone and what choices you make in that battle of light and dark. And that led me to this stuff here. And I think you probably, I'm glad you started that journey a lot earlier than I did in my life.
I think in part that we were fortunate to have shows like Force Center out there to sort of lay the groundwork. And, you know, we were also, a lot of us, you know, some people in the comments right now, like Jared, we were, you know, obnoxious AP English kids sitting around analyzing books like Great Gatsby for hours on end. You know, we are in a time where it's both the greatest thing ever that everybody has a voice, but also the worst thing ever that everybody has a voice. And so you're just trying to navigate that and find some sort of substance. But something that you touched on there that is sort of one of the cores of this show. Like right here, we had a comment from In a Galaxy Pod, friend Eli, one of my favorite people in the game, and asking us what this show is going to represent. It's going to represent truth and represent an idea of wanting to find sort of the space in between things, because a lot of the times things aren't cut and dry, and sometimes you're working them out in real time. And we live in a world where they expect you to have a take ready when you wake up, and that's not always going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think taking a breath before you react, not just taking a breath before you post or tweet or Twix or whatever you want to say is key, but also eventually finding out where you stand to some of the stuff. And and you're right, the space between it is that was probably the worst Dave Matthews ever recorded, other than Dave Matthews. But my journey as a small town, white, straight suburban kid who moved to the big city 25 years ago and had the world come to his eyes and his soul, and it shook me slowly over 25 years. My journey of being like that conservative suburban kid to where I am now, someone who doesn't just lean progressive, he swings progressive with a hammer sometimes, but trying to find out where I am going forward and find my place in this change, something I always say, even in my stand-up performances, but also carrying with me some of the experiences and perspectives and a sense of empathy for the not people on the other side, but just from the everyday humans, is why I'm fascinated about these kind of conversations we're about to have. You talk about truth, it's our truth, our perspective, but it's just trying to kind of roll it in the mud of reality in all these headlines is where I'm at.
Absolutely. And with that, if you don't like the coastal elites, you can just stop watching now. As Ken just admitted, he's a dirty Los Angeles elitist. He's a Hollywood, he's a Hollywood big shot.
But that's part of it. Yeah, no, I am. LA, baby. You take the 405 and you're a veteran of traffic wars, you know what I mean? Out here. Look, but I'm one that absolutely just abhors the flyover state mentality of you're in Florida. It's easy to just say F Florida, cut it off because of DeSantis and his heels, but there's people like you there. There's people that's their home. I don't want Texas to go away. I want Texas to do right by its people, whatever the people of that state want it to be. So I'm with you. Coastal elites, F them. I'm about trying to find and understand everyone's point of view, even if I disagree with it at the end.
And that's why we'll be launching our cross-country 50-state tour. No, not yet. Not yet. We're going to need a few more of those super chats from Eli before that happens.
Here it goes. All right, Alden, let's do this. Oh, one final note. We will have an audio podcast available where we'll take the main show and put it on a podcast feed. I am no longer going to be using Spotify for podcasters, what was formerly known as Anchor. I loved Anchor. I'm still on it for my Knapsack network, but I'm in the process of transferring it. Spotify, I understand it to a degree. They did what YouTube did years ago, said, hey, we're tired of cutting checks for 22 cents to podcasts that don't have a big listenership, but they raised the standards. And currently my main show, I don't put all my elbow grease into it. It's not generating money. And I pay my bills by this stuff. So when Spotify decided to do that, I'm out on working with that app and that feed and that hosting site. We're going to have an audio version available soon. So stick with us on that. I apologize for not getting it ready before this, Alden.
Well, we're just trying to force people to have to look at our extremely handsome faces and our Star Wars posters because we're painfully on brand, even in a non-Star Wars show.
Even in a non-Star Wars show. All right. With that, we are going to swing through some news. Alden, let's take a look at some of the headlines. Yes, not all. Some of the headlines spin around the nation this past week, and then we'll dive where we want to dog paddle in the swampy water. Just swim around in that swamp that never gets drained. The most recent former president of the United States of America is still on trial in New York City. This civil case based around the former president's penchant for deceiving banks, insurers, and let's face it, those relatives you don't speak with anymore, by exaggerating the value of his assets was full of explosive moments this week. This included Judge Engoron, who sounds like he really wants to help Frodo take the ring back, asking the defense lawyers to control him, and yelling at his attorney, Alina Habba, to sit down. We didn't see this because this is not on camera. This is followed by the defendant's own daughter, only 42 years young, Alden, taking the stand and pretty much answering, I don't recall, to every question. A tragic loss of her mental faculties, it would seem. This week in Mike Johnson is a problem. It was revealed that religious extremist and current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, doesn't whack one off without getting his son, sending his son a notification on his phone. We can talk more about the Covenant Eyes app later. I have some thoughts, a lot of different directions on that. But while the nation is focused on this resurfaced clip, it was revealed that the man pretty much in charge of keeping the government from shutting down in under a week, just a few days, has almost no listed assets. Johnson himself has explained this by describing himself as a man of modest means, which, if true, actually might endear him to a nation of people just trying to get by as well, including me. Your super chats go directly to my lunch today. But if it's a lie, and oh, let me tell you, I just signed up for FanDuel to place a bet on this being a lie, it would once again unravel the myth that Republicans are for the working class, but the working class would be too busy blaming Biden for the gas prices and not OPEC Plus to see that, and of course not blaming the companies like Exxon touting record-setting profits. This past Tuesday was election night in America, which usually gets 92% less turnout than NBC's Football Night in America. And would you look at that? Turns out when you threaten to take away women's bodily autonomy and agency, they respond, and the youth responds, and most people respond. And don't tell Rick Santorum, but democracy does work. Andy Beshear won a second term as governor of Kentucky, and that he defeated McConnell and Trump-backed Daniel Cameron. Ohio voters overcame the stereotypes put upon them by jackasses like me and enshrined abortion rights into their state's constitution. And Virginian Democrats splashed their way to a mini blue wave, getting control of the state and essentially preventing Glenn Youngkin's desired abortion ban in that state. Also, the Sag-Aftra strike finally ended, and this, combined with the recent end of the WGA strike, means pedestrian traffic just cleared up for me on my drives over Olive and Barham, which are the same street. Alden, don't question it, just go with it. Those are some of the headlines, Alden. We'll talk more about the strike in depth, but where do you want to go first on our news discussion?
You're really good at this. Sometimes I'm like, that's Ken Knapsack. That's the guy. That's him.
That's the guy who just wants to have orange chicken for lunch.
Please fund the orange chicken habit. Look, it's sort of like is Trump now the lowest hanging fruit since ever? Yes. And I wonder do I respect the eternal commitment to the bit from his children? Kinda, in the darkest way possible.
Yeah. Eric Trump going, I never knew. Here's an email with your name on it. I didn't. Yeah, I don't read my emails.
I've never heard of such things. I can't recall. It's pretty impressive, but I almost wonder, do you think we should put almost a Trump story must hit a certain level on the scale to make it into the rundown? Like
a Trump bar. Yes,
a Trump meter. Yeah.
A Trump meter, Trump bar. This is great. I like a lot of folks, I'm tired of talking about this man, but also it's hard to turn away, and I don't think you should turn away. But I'm with you. Until we need to say his name, lest he appear. I'm good kind of cutting him out of it.
Yeah, I almost am fine with it. Now, look, we say this, and then between now and next week, there's going to be some cataclysmic development, and he'll be right back in the lineup. But in the interest of shedding light on other darkness, there is this Mike Johnson thing. This guy, which, I'm looking at the comments here. We had Eli who said, yes, MAGA Mike, or as most people call him, who. This guy came out of nowhere and rose in the ranks of villains so quickly. And yeah, you in our production discussion said, what about Mike Johnson as a problem? And it's like, I am baffled that this man exists and that you can be this guy and just boo and shut up your way to one of the top offices in the land. And now here he is with a parenting porn controversy.
I'll start with Covenant Eyes. By the way, I forgot I had some graphics prepared. We're going to have a producer so you to press the buttons. I really like this courtroom drawing of the monster under the bridge that's going to eat your orange chicken lunch. One of my favorite photos there. So my thought on the I did this on my morning show, 20 Minutes of Coffee, which I have become a channel member. You can get to watch it live. Shill. Mike Johnson did. You're so right. It is a. It's not a heel turn. It's just a heel showing up to wrestle a match, and you're like, where did this guy come from? The Indies? Now he's a top dog here. I'll say this. I try to say, attack the policies, not the man. I think that's important. I don't want to just be here snarky. Going after this guy who has a certain set of beliefs that I came from. I came from a lot of that world. I understand it. The Covenant Eyes thing, the app, which for those who aren't aware, it's this app he has on his phone, and you can monitor, what sites you're going to. So that way, his 17-year-old son knows that, he's not watching comedian and adult film star Sylvia Sage, who's great, by the way, very nice person, great comic. He's not watching her videos. And so his 17-year-old son knows that. I'm sure 17-year-old son has a burner phone, and I'm sure Mike Johnson does as well. How else are you going to download Grindr on it? But I don't, despite Mike Johnson looking like a guy that's going to rat on you for smoking under the bleachers, like he's the one that goes and tells teacher, or he's the one that says, hey, it's Friday, it's 3:00, you haven't assigned homework. He has that look. The Covenant Eyes app type of thing, Alden, is, I don't know where your background on this. It's so normal to that world. I almost don't want to make too much fun of it because they're going to get defensive. People I know who I grew up with are going to be like, Yeah, porn can be an addictive problem, and I do agree with that in real life. It can lead to other things. There's a bigger picture, and if you feel you need some accountability, that's not a bad thing. I don't disagree with that overall. It's part of a tableau, but I don't know your thoughts on that.
It's interesting because it's like you want to have, at least in my experience growing up, you want to have an openness and a sexuality. I remember working with somebody who had a teenage son, and she was like, yeah, we've had like the discussions about it. And I just say, you don't learn how to drive from the Fast and the Furious in the same way you don't learn what romance is from pornography. And so I think like there is a healthy amount of parental like engagement, but it's like you said, you don't on principle, you're not like, let's attack this guy, but then you find out about this guy and it makes it impossible. So like it's that meter of like he has lost that sort of that benefit. You know, this comment right here from Lauren Roma, our friend, spousally just as bad as he is. That's the thing, is that once that comes into it, then you can start to analyze it. Like you slip the grinder mention in there, and you look at what's happening sort of with the modern satanic panic and drag brunch hysteria, and this ties right into that. And on his level, like, is there some just normal mom out there who's just overly concerned, doesn't know what to do? I'm positive. I'm sure there's many of them. But yeah, when it's this person, it's like, oh, he is absolutely a cheating porn addict. Like, no doubt. Like, he just has to be.
Look, this kind of monitoring what you watch or reporting it to accountability partners. The last time I was regularly in church was the early 2000s out here. A couple churches in LA, Rocky Peak Church, and one up in Porter Ranch, Shepherd of the Hills, which both became mega churches, and was one of the reasons. No problem with them. I just left for a lot of reasons, but that was one of it. But this was common back then, because but the difference is, it's different than Ken, and I didn't participate in this, but it's different than Ken in 2001 telling a friend that he went to Maxim.com or FHM, resubscribe to the magazine. This isn't that. This is someone who is forming those policies, who now has a meteoric rise to power. And you're right. I made a Grindr reference. There's a lot of folks that kind of feel that maybe Mike Johnson's been dealing with some stuff. I don't want to even mock that at times. If that's what you're going through and that's your journey, and you don't feel secure in who you are, and you're struggling to find that way forward, that's a real concern. And that's something that I wish we lived in, that world where you could come to your full identity in the public for all of us. And if Mike Johnson's really been going through that his whole life, this is all allegedly, I don't know. I want him to get to that point, but he takes whatever's gone on, that internalized rage, or what he just simply says is my beliefs are based on the Bible. And I don't think it lines up. The Bible doesn't line up with even some of the stuff he's saying. That's where it gets dangerous for me. That's where Covenant Eyes gets dangerous.
Yeah, I think he was reading more Bible expanded universe and not necessarily the core.
He was reading the Timothy Zahn version of Genesis.
He was, absolutely, which is in fact as thick as the whole thing in terms of the real one. Yeah, it's just, this will come up a lot, where these culture wars and these things, and it's like, is the existence of such an app an inherent evil? No. But when it's embedded and tied in with policy, with an office of that level, I mean, the man is in the immediate succession zone for the presidency. And these are the types of things that he's concerned with. And exactly, yes. As Jared said in the comments, for the benefit of the podcast listener, the Bible never lines up with what these clowns say, because it's being used, it's being warped, it's being manipulated, and and we'll get into that as we go, no doubt. But yeah, this guy is extremely concerning. I also had the Who reaction when he was nominated and chosen, and then immediately you're like, oh, he was let's cover up the coup guy. Okay. Oh, now he's this type of guy. Oh, he's this type of guy too.
That was it's so funny. Yeah, he's been around for a bit. He's only 51, but he's been in office about 4 or 5 years. But he rises to power in a jump to the top of the card in a way that I hadn't really seen since like Sarah Palin, where it was like for 2 days people were like, "Oh my God, McCain might have. This is a great pick to combat what's going on with the young kind of generational movement behind Obama." And then 3 days later, it was like, "Oh, did they even vet her? Did they even talk to her?" Mike Johnson has some of that. where the danger of him is I do think he's a smart guy. I do think he might just be a man of modest means who's speaking for the people. And he's the guy who, while everyone else was screaming election rigged and let's storm the Capitol, he's like, how can we actually do this? And it was part of his ideas and his policies that actually were like, here's how we actually uphold, keep these election results from happening. That's the danger of him.
Absolutely. So that's who I wanted to start with. I think he's not going to be the last moron that we talk about today or in the run of this show. But I think that out of all of the ones that jumped out at me, that is definitely the core. But then, in terms of the widespreadness too, it's not all doom and gloom and sons and fathers having porn conversations. We also saw some heartening, needed good news in terms of people out there defending the right to choose, and reminding us that while it feels like a hopeless time, there are people out there that are not apathetic, which is pretty great.
Yeah. And there's a great comment from Andy Hodges I want to come back to at the end of our news discussion, because I really agree with what he was saying, and I want to make sure my words were clearer than just some of the jokes. But yeah, the election night thing was a great I don't know, surprise confirmation, and it's a small piece in a larger puzzle, but the abortion issue being at the center of it, and how that brought people out is encouraging in so many ways. And there's also an underlying issue of abortion, a healthcare issue, a choice issue, but also it's an economic issue. So when you have some people running or saying, hey, I know it looks on paper the economy is going great, but the working family can't go to the store for less than this amount of money. There's truth in that, right? I'm feeling that. You're feeling that. So if you come in running on that and say, hey, the economics aren't really great right now, and then you also say, but you must have children, perhaps the greatest economic burden there is. I think that might also cause some people to be like, forget their high morals or what they might think of or take from the Bible or what. I think they're just like, whoa. Not only is it a healthcare issue, you're trying to bury me even more economically. And I think that could have something. I don't have any charts or graphs in front of me to prove that, but that's something that I would just also think would be effective.
Yeah, and none of these issues are mutually exclusive things. There's not a single thing in the entire sort of spectrum of what voters vote on that is not inherently tied in. I mean, it's the fallacy of the single issue voter. The single issue voter only thinks they're a single issue voter, because the second that you look into any of those issues, there's the money and the exchanges and the bills that are crafted with the, you'll have an entire spending project hidden inside of another bill sometimes, and it just becomes it's so deeply complex that people can't see sort of like the link between parenthood and healthcare and the economy such as it is. I mean, I'm looking at the price of coffee creamer and I'm like, I don't know how anyone does anything.
A lot of people made fun of one of the guys there. Well, first of all, there's the guy at the airport who was like $80 and it was $70 of whiskey. That's thing. But there was the one guy who kind of went viral of, he put like 6 items on his table. It was like $100 at the grocery store. And people were kind of poking fun at him. The internet today, guys, Elliot and Ricky, check them out if you don't watch them. We're pointing out how some people are saying, look, you bought 6 items that can't even make a meal. So, a lot of the pushback on that. But there's the truth to that, right? The coffee creamer thing you're talking about. Going to a store. So I can get behind some of it. It's just and I heard this phrase today by the guy. What's the guy running against Grandma Bobo, Lauren Boebert in Colorado? He called it the rage attainment, of politics, where she's a brand builder. Matt Gaetz is an empty vessel of no ideas. He's just building his brand for the next job. And that takes the front seat. So when a lot of those ragers are raging about this one issue, it makes sense that someone would be like,
Adam Frisch.
Thank you. Support Adam Frisch. She only won by 500 votes last time. Send her full time to the Beetlejuice Theater. Maybe she can work there as an usher. But you know what I'm saying. I think I'm just repeating myself over and over again. That's what I think I took from the results.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're right, and I think that in terms of where we're headed, because anything past a year and a half into a presidential term, it becomes election season again. Like
Yeah.
the season just gets longer and longer, to the point where the terms are the seasons at this point. I didn't feel that way when I was a kid. That definitely feels like it has increased, where like Biden became president, and I felt like we were back in the I felt like the 2024 conversation happened immediately after. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I guess we're
yeah, it's a little bit of time, right? As a kid, summers lasted so long. As a kid, it was like I barely remembered when Mondale and Ferraro ran.
Mondale, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the final big things for me of this election night, I think the big one in a lot of ways was Andy Beshear winning a second term. He's already entrenched as a governor there in Kentucky, beating former AG Daniel Cameron, who I don't know he was involved and muffed in glorious fashion the Breonna Taylor investigation. That was under his watch. He's a Mitch McConnell and Trump back guy in Kentucky. And again, talking about the stereotypes, right? Of the middle America, the flyover states, that we all do this. They're all out there doing that. That ain't true, man. And one of the reasons I think Beshear won, other than this big abortion issue with Daniel Cameron being on that rage entertainment side, Beshear's a good governor. And I think that goes a long way for these people who have a certain intelligence that they carry into the voting booth or envelope.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think people have been pushed, whether that's pushed out of apathy. I feel like I'm talking about like Nolan's Batman at this point. People need something to shake them out of apathy. They need dramatic symbols. Like I really do think that's
into the picture.
Yeah, I'm gonna start shaking my camera up here, but it's true. And I think people have been pushed in terms of the right to choose, and they're fed up. And I think seeing Roe go down in the modern age just felt so impossible, but it was a long laid plan. I think people get sick of feeling powerless, and that plays into things like identity. It sounds so simple because in the list of problems, are these states full of hicks is so low on the problem scale. People doing a country accent to make fun of you is so low on the problem scale. But I do think people, especially young people, get tired of being defined by their environment and by stereotypes. You mentioned like I'm a young, really left guy living in Florida, and I do get sick of saying I live in Florida and the assumptions flying in. And that happens. I mean, Jared in the comments lives near the infamous Trump house. It's in Pennsylvania, like the house that's just completely made up for him. It looks like his fan club. Like that's there. And I wonder if what you're talking about of these people that are like, no, we do like this guy and we are sick of this, and we do need to show that that's not us. I wonder if we're at a point, and it makes me, I don't want to say hopeful, but it makes me very curious about next year if we're going to see the turnout continue and grow and spark. We can hope. So.
And one of the big little interesting wrinkles is Kentucky's. We should check Kentucky. Maybe I'll send my fiance Grace out there with some ghost hunting machines. It might be a portal for something, because there's a stat I don't have in front of me that anytime like Kentucky wins the NCAA basketball championship, the New York Yankees win the World Series, my favorite baseball team. The last 8 presidential elections have been predicted by the governor's race in Kentucky. It's almost like science that whatever party kind of comes out ahead there, that leads to the White House. So, harbinger of good things. Is it a pseudoscience? Maybe. But it's a fascinating little stat. I think it was finally broken on the sports side, but it was crazy. Wow. Kentucky wins at basketball, Yankees win the World Series. Since 2003, 8 presidential elections have been essentially predicted by this governor's race.
I love that so deeply. I love hilarious pseudoscience. That could be a topic on a future episode. Like, if the Jaguars win, then AEW booking will be really good because Tony owns both and he feels inspired. Like, and there will be wrestling on this show. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah,
It's not, oh no, because Trey T, you might not know me personally. I don't got sports knowledge.
You don't got sports? Okay. We got I want to shout out Dan, the Food in My Beard, great food blogger there, and a great author of If You Want to Cook Tater Tots, Dan's your guy. He lived in Columbus, Ohio for 3 years, and it's an awesome and super progressive city. It's almost felt more progressive than Boston, where I lived most of my life. Yeah, and that's part of the point here too. And I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound like Joe Manchin, who we should keep an eye on, make sure he doesn't try to run and ruin things in 2024 now that he's decided he's not going to go for re-election. I'm going to try to unite the middle, when it really it doesn't mean what you think it is, and it can be more destructive. But there's some truth behind it. Just trying to understand other people's point of view. It's a good, simple building block for good things, I think.
Absolutely. No, I do. And I think that there is a certain level of this is now the third time that Star Wars will come up on the show, but it's to defeat an enemy, you must know them. Like, that's true. Like, in context, when you're a fascist trying to dominate the galaxy, maybe not great, but out of context, he had some points. And there is, I mean, that's something that we talk about a lot amongst my friend circles. Jared from the Nerd Academy podcast is in the comments. He is a self-taught expert on the right-wing grift and on everything that's happened on the internet in the last sort of decade plus of radicalization and everything, and why these personalities go the way they go, and why they think they mean one thing, but they don't necessarily stick the landing with that meaning. It's all very complicated, but very interesting.
The right wing grift, which is now fully entrenched in the UFO world. We'll talk about that on a show going forward. You believe in aliens? You might be right, but don't believe what's going on right now around all the whistleblowers, which they have got a major victory because was it Sean Kirkpatrick's going to be retiring soon from the head of the committee that's been handling all the investigations on the government side. Oh, don't get me started on that whole grift. We're going to switch quickly to world news. I don't have as much prepared for this, Alden, because, well, the world is all still on fire. World news is important to track because it definitely affects us here at home. But Alden, I'm still someone who wakes up every day and tries to get updates as best I can on the war in Ukraine. I think that matters to us. I'm one who believes you should, and it's always complicated. I understand that, but we should send money over there because that's a cheaper discount than going to a full-on war that we might need to one day if Russia sweeps over Crimea and Ukraine in total. That has faded in the background, understandably. It's not the hot buzzy story, but there's other stuff as well going on.
Yeah, and it's like a mental bandwidth thing too, right? Like, in terms of like just the concept of it fading to the background, I think there's a perception that if you aren't tweeting, sharing, reading, talking, that you don't care. But there's truly, and it sounds like an excuse, but I mean this from the most truthful place, there truly is only so much brain power for a given day. And then there comes a time where you will feel so tapped out. Our brains weren't meant to function this way. Our brains were not meant to be able to get all of these stories at the same time, as well as our funny videos, as well as our fandoms and all that. So it becomes extremely complicated. But I know it's an issue that, of course, is extremely close to you also in terms of heritage, in terms of like what you were brought up on by your parents and grandparents, and what you know about the region, and what you know about the history.
Yeah, what I wasn't told, for those that had never followed me on other things or didn't pay close attention to me, because I agree with that approach to me. I am of Ukrainian and Circassian descent, but it was easier in the 80s to just say I was Russian. And with the Soviet Union, not untrue from a certain point of view. My grandparents, my grandmother recently only passed away 2 years ago in her mid-90s. My grandfather about 4 years ago in his mid-90s. My grandmother was from Kyiv. My grandfather Circassian, and during World War II, he was captured by the Nazis The Russians who he was captured with tried to beat him up and kill him in prison. He fought them off. He was only about 5'1" or 2", fought them off. And that made the German Nazi soldiers watching him there say, "You're with us now." And he was press ganged into the Nazi army on penalty of death if he didn't, along with some others, which was a common practice. He eventually did escape, was captured by the Allies. And as he told me one day in a harrowing story, his bullets whizzed over his head and he watched soldiers die around him who screamed his name, knapsack, 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 as he had to keep running for his own life. He goes, "The war ended for me that day." But his journey began. He met my grandmother in a camp. What ended up happening is the Stalin-led Soviet government considered people like my grandfather traitors, even though he had no options at the time. He was always, his entire life, spoke horribly about Stalin, any other Gorbachev, who, I don't know, did some okay things, I think, and Putin. To his dying day, my grandfather cursed Putin's name. So it's been interesting to watch this kind of the world learn that it was not just one giant enemy of Rocky Balboa that was fighting us all as it was kind of settled. Anyways, I don't want to go down too far to that line, but that's why it all means a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hearing your stories just on your various shows and everything has been really, really deeply affecting and really heartening. And yeah, I think case in point, this just to say you don't get up and miss those updates. Everyone out there, you're doing your best and to stay informed. If you're our friend, if you're in our circles, we know you're trying, and definitely don't feel bad. I've had friends text me before, like, "I don't know what to say about this," or "I don't know what to trust about this." And the fact that you're asking is good, and that's good. Start there.
It's absolutely good, and that kind of leads to where we want to go next year. And we wanted to find out where I don't know where we stand. We know where I think we stand, but how we want to discuss what is still ongoing. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the Sudan right now, but obviously, unfortunately, I think obviously what's going on in Israel and Gaza is without a doubt continues to be horrible, continues to be harrowing, and continues to be kind of a tragic Rorschach test on how to process, discuss, and support a lot of different people during this time.
Yeah, it's been horrifying. I mean, in terms of, this is episode 1, and we don't want it to be so brutal, but what we are witnessing is a genocide. It is. And
over 11,000 reported dead as of today. Saw some reports.
Yeah, and now announced 4-hour breaks for people to flee. Rather than a ceasefire, we're just going to do a long lunch and let people leave a war zone. And it's absolutely uncalled for, horrifying, disproportional retaliation. But with that, this is an exercise. This entire year has kind of been an exercise in, can you hold more than one thought at the same time? This is not to say that anybody should be ripping hostage flyers down. This is not to say that anybody should be going to their college, a Jewish student union, and doing anything to those students. This is not to say any of that. I mean, I had a long-standing friendship of 7 years end for what somebody perceived as a both sides Instagram post, which 3 slides later directly, is really direct. And it's a very difficult and brutal thing, but yeah, I mean, there's the amount of empathy that you can find within yourself for any child should sort of drive you in this situation, and for adults too. It's horrifying, and ultimately it's sort of like a who represents who. Like, you grew up in the church, but certainly the clan didn't represent you and your family. Like, I grew up, we're Puerto Rican. Certainly the Latin Kings in the Northeast, one of the most notorious gangs, didn't represent my family. But this is the only world issue where people seem to insist that groups do get represented by their microcosm, that everything is like, well, this people is this group and this people is this government. And that's just so fundamentally not true. And it's pretty terrifying and sad.
Yeah, no, terrifying indeed. And you're not the only person I know who's lost longtime friends or acquaintances, even in the business, that you thought, because it's without a doubt and passion. And I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to reiterify again, like, I'm not a foreign policy expert. When this all started happening, October 7th, I woke, like a lot of folks, woke up with the world, woke up and looked at this horrifying thing in the world. And I wanted to make sure I was like, I grew up with a lot of the, Gaza Strip, West Bank. I didn't know what that was in 83, 84, 85, all that stuff going on. You're a kid. I did grow up in a church, and I think there's some truth. I don't want to say this in a general sense, because comedian Michael Ian Black kind of got in a little bit of trouble on the internet, kind of saying all of the support for Israel from the right is based on end times prophecy fears. There's some absolute truth in that. That's a general sweep that I don't want to necessarily say is true for 100%, but I was raised with that. You support Israel because it's a sign. 1948, the establishment of the country is a sign of prophecy towards the end times, and it's part of this picture. And it can get, and it's weird kind of path to follow. All that's there. All that to say, this whole situation. I'm just trying to educate myself as best I can. The sin of silence versus this silently learning is a battle we all maybe have to deal with every day. And this all comes down. We want to talk a little bit about the what is essentially a historic censure of Representative Rashida Tlaib from Michigan. There's censuring in Congress it was a popular thing in like 1860s to 1890. You can go look down the list. A lot of representatives were censured for imparliamentary language, like it's weird. And then it disappeared for a long time. Came back a little bit. There was the Page sex scandal in 83, where 2 representatives got censured. That's when they kind of determined a reprimand was different from a censure. Then it kind of disappears again until Charles Rangel in 2010, Democratic representative, censured for some fraud stuff. Comes back again in a major way with Paul Gosar. He gets censured in 2021 for the anime he put out depicting violence from him against President Biden and Representative Ocasio-Cortez. And then now this year, Schiff and now Tlaib. And I stand against it just on it. It's a bad precedent for it becoming a tool again by either side, if you want to play that, but by sides using it as some political kind of circusy tool. It's also dangerous that the only, to say it's a bad look is an understatement, that the only Palestinian representative of our government, we all told her, not us, but as a governing body, said, sit down and shut up during this time. That's a troubling look as well to start off the conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely dangerous in terms of how it can become this is the House style, this is the House statement, and if you don't fall in line with what we've set at the dinner table, then this is what's going to happen. And the idea that you can't have the dissenting opinion, whatever that dissenting opinion is. In this case, it happens to be specifically they want to get on the verbiage of the from the river to the sea, which is, as you alluded to earlier in the show, a thing that starts meaning one thing, other people insist it means this thing.
Yeah.
Flows, changes, gets entirely warped. Much like very different situations and very different cultural conversations, but much like the word woke has been butchered and destroyed. And that's a problem. And also just to bring this up here, Tlaib gets censured, but Santos got saved from expulsion. Give me a break. This is what we're working with right here. This is what we're working with.
Except I agree with JB Raskin's statement on it, which is Santos should resign in shame, but a precedent could dangerously be set where I think we know one party might have fun weaponizing it. But I do agree that the fact that Santos is still in the government is an absolute joke compared to jump into what you're saying. Yeah, and that's part of this whole situation for me. I want to make sure I step around this conversation and step through it with as much care as I can muster, and continue to try to learn, to continue. For me, I will denounce the actions of Hamas on October 7th. I will also question strongly, if that's the soft word you want me to use, about what Israel's doing right now. But it's important to find the information. It's important to understand a lot of it. Going to as best you can, and then maybe also not tweet all the time about it. Do we need everyone's statement about this right now? Not necessarily. Not that I want to shut anyone's voices out. It's just that's the danger of social media, which you said up top. The reactionary thing can be an issue. But this whole situation, Tlaib getting censured, is the whole situation in a nutshell. That's something I disagree with. I believe she should be able to speak and represent her experience as a Palestinian who still has like family, a grandmother in West Bank. But also she uses a phrase from the river to the sea that definitely has some implications that are complicated. But there's a great, I want to shout out Lori Kellerman just this morning. Lori Kelman on I'm on the AP News app. From the river to the sea, why these 6 words sparked fury and passion over the Israel-Hamas war. It goes into a great explanation of different interpretations isn't the right, but what you said with woke about, what from river to sea means one thing to a group of people, not even I'm talking about Jewish people or Israel, to people hearing it, they hear it, they think one thing, but it also means another thing, and it also means this, and that's this whole situation. You think about this, you think about this, you think about this. The one group though that's always affected, and Jon Stewart, I just saw an interview with Jon Stewart this about 7 months ago in a podcast. It was making that kind of YouTube algorithm thing.
Yeah.
About 7, he was asked about it, and it's complicated isn't even the right word, but at the end of the day, helping the Palestinian people is not to the benefit of anyone, including Hamas, because if they help them, they lose their power. Israel this, and other countries use it. Hey, look what Israel's doing to the Palestinians. Do you want us to do that to you? It's just, and at the end of the day, all of its headlines that filters down to the actual day-to-day get up and live in Gaza and West Bank Palestinians are the ones that no one helps. So to have one voice with that deeply ingrained perspective censured is what I think at the end of the day is not good for our government.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and it continues the dangerous precedent, like with woke, that woke was a word created, coined, and promoted by Black voices, by the Black community, especially Black creatives in the arts that were talking about how certain people needed to wake up. That's what it means. That's, things being woke meant you cared about certain things and that you weren't going to stay silent about them anymore. And then it was grabbed onto and the hooks went in, and now it's the boogeyman. It's the same thing over here. And the irony, one post that I've loved that I've seen going around, but different people, it's one of those like, who had the original tweet? No one knows because they're all viral. But it's like the irony of this government that says from sea to shining sea on indigenous land, censuring from the river to the sea in a fight about indigenous land. That is irony, the likes of which I've never seen in my life. Like that is the peak of the concept of irony.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the books I'm about to read, I've owned this book for about 10 years, but it's a book about the Custer's Last Stand, the actual story behind it. And I pointed that one as the big educational mess that I grew up with of, that hero, General Custer. You're well said on that there, and I did not well said on that follow-up.
So, all right.
As we're saying here, our eye is always over there. I don't know if I'm always going to say the most perfect thing about it. Yeah, Kingsport Cal says it. Finally, someone knows the meaning of quote. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm always going to speak on it perfectly. I'm going to not speak on it. If I'm in doubt, I'm going to not speak on Israel, Hamas, Gaza situation, because I want to make sure that I'm taking all of it into account. But and I know you're as well. But it's horribly tragic. But this has been just this weird time where I've seen so many partnerships, friendships, everything kind of get torn apart immediately over this. Which is troubling as well. It leads to a lot of the stuff going on.
Yeah, it's an exercise in like analyzing human behavior in a lot of ways. But just, for an episode 1, if you're wondering, what kind of show am I watching? If you don't know, is what do they think? We're horrified. We don't condone it. It's awful. It's a genocide, and we need a ceasefire. That I think we all like. Our group of friends, the people that we'll be talking to, bringing on, working with, like this is beyond the pale.
Yeah, I have. I want to just get myself to shut up, but it's like I've been really one of my areas of focus right now of personal study is the 1950s and the moral panic, which kind of and how the 1950s really built this country improperly going forward, and from cars parking to social issues, but also post 9/11. I'm someone who, from California, it would end up being safely in California, but that morning we didn't know, experienced 9/11 there. It's something I watch docs on every year. I'm morbidly obsessed with. I'm a former public safety director. I looked at it from those terms too, but I always looked on the day and I always remember the day and the feelings. And now I'm starting to study the 20 plus years after. And there's a great book on my table right now called Reign of Terror, how 9/11 destabilized America and led to Trump. Don't take it from me, because I wasn't an elected official or at the forefront of this situation the last 20 plus years in America. But what was horrible, what happened on October 7th is horrible. How you react, how you choose to fight going forward is just as important as choosing to fight. We talk about that in Star Wars, and it seems so trite to bring in Star Wars at this point, but that's why I dig into Star Wars to the level I do. That's the lessons there. And I think sometimes I'm trying to put that out there. I follow Joe Walsh, not the Eagles guitarist, but the former elected official turned anti-Trump Republican. I think he's got some great takes. I think he's got some wonderful reason takes and some good intentions. But on this, his conservative is showing left and right, and he's all about the vengeance of it. Understandable. I got friends. I have people I know who used to work in the comedy world who are over in Israel right now. They're going viral with some of their tweets. I understand the passion. I understand the call for vengeance. I really do. They're experiencing it, but it's okay. Joe Walsh said something at one point of like, imagine post 9/11, someone telling America to how they can respond. And I'm like, I wish someone did. And I think some people did. Look at freedom fries. I think that was French people going, and we turned it into freedom fries in this country. That's part of the situation for me that I'm watching as well. This could have long-term horrible ramifications.
Absolutely.
Well, wiping out of a people.
Absolutely. And we will talk about this many more times. I've got some guests in mind. We're going to try to get some voices on that have way more expertise. I have a cultural connection and really try to highlight some things, get some links going. But before we leave news altogether, just want to say appreciate these super chats. We've got some that are relevant to the news, some that are not relevant to the news. I know you wanted to get back to Andy's, and I didn't want you to lose that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. This is why I have it in my show, The Blathering. This is why I named it that, because I just have no, I have no, my mind goes a lot of places. All right. You know what? I got it right here. Now, and Andy followed up.
It's a two-parter.
He followed up. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Andy said, I hate the implication that all cruel and homophobic conservatives are secret closeted and ashamed gays. It's way more complicated issue than that. And I wanted to say, I agree with that. I want to clarify. He did follow up, says, hey, that wasn't meant to accuse you, Ken. I got what you're saying. I also think that the conservatives would get caught with Grindr is a very sad situation that deserves the sympathy you brought up. And I don't have all the right words to say on that, but I think we're definitely, Andy, in the same boat. Like, if Mike Johnson truly was a closeted a gay man and he lived his whole life with it, that would be its own tragedy. That for him, like, that's sad for him. It's sad that he came up in those systems that he felt he couldn't be that. And if that's truly the case. And by the way, this is allegedly, I want to make sure I say any word that makes me legally safe from accusing of this, but like, I don't take that lightly, even though I might toss in a Grindr joke, even though it does kind of seem weird, even though there's a lot, and it's part of, like I said earlier, part of a bigger tableau. It's part of the crocheted blanket of who Mike Johnson is right now. I really agree with that. That's some of the real tragedies is that those systems, as oppressive systems of harm, could hurt someone in that way.
Absolutely. Now, question. We got some other questions here. Question for you, Ken. Would you like to do questions before we get into the Hollywood stuff, or would you like to do questions at the end?
Let's do a couple of questions now, and then we got our main show. By the way, Alden and I said this show is going to be an hour every week. It's probably going longer today. We'll work on getting shorter.
And also, it's a newborn. The show's a baby. It's not always going to be a heavy top half either. Just so happened to have worked out that way. Sometimes it's going to be a personal topic. Sometimes it's going to be. I'm
out of peach tea. That's the concern I have.
That's also there's a new Dua Lipa song, so the world's not all bad, which we'll get to in the entertainment.
Let's take a couple questions, and then we do want to get into our main topic here shortly. What do you got?
All right, we're gonna stay on Andy, and then we'll jump around.
Okay.
I want to start out by asking a difficult question for this political show right from the jump. New York, Detroit, or Chicago pizza? Who's got the best? This is enough to start wars in friend groups. I mean, the Force Center team was almost torn apart by pizza.
It really was. I love. I'll answer that. Dan says, "Just getting the main show." LOL. Yeah, no. We knew this was gonna happen. I don't like New York pizza. I did have some good pizza last time I was out. I don't love Chicago, the old thick style pizza. I know that's we associate Chicago style with basically a lasagna on a pizza tray, but there's also some flat normal pizza in Chicago that I hear is great that I haven't had yet. And I don't believe that Detroit style exists. I've heard about it. Lauren Romo, who might still be in chat, co-host of the Galactic Podcast, claims, because she lives out there, claims that Detroit style pizza is a thing. I've never tried it.
Lauren, I task you with taking a cell phone video. I want your camera facing the menu, and I want to see in the glass window. I want to see it. I don't know what that means. I don't know what Detroit style means. I've never been. I am a New York leaning person in general. I like to fold a giant slice. I like Chicago too, but it's a different experience. But I will say, as a quick aside, the greatest pizza I ever had in my life, I've been chasing this dragon since I was about 12 years old, was in Munich. In Munich, by the Munich airport. I can't remember the place. Maybe I could maybe muscle memory would kick in, sense memory, and I'd be able to navigate there if I ever went back. There was this waitress, quite possibly a real angel. I have yet to confirm that.
I see where this story is good. This is young Alden in love. That's what fuels this pizza story.
She just the long, dark, curly hair. She gave me this cheese pizza, and it was the greatest pizza I've ever had in my life.
This isn't your answer about best pizza. This is Alden starring in Love Actually 2. Get out of here with this.
Maybe with this ambiguously German woman with their pizza shop. It was the greatest.
Look, I love it. I get it. I spent most of my 20s falling in love with any waitress that would serve me. I once left a $11 tip on a $9 bill, just hoping that she would pay attention to me.
Hell yeah. What's for lunch today, Ken? Not lunch, what's for lunch today?
I'm going to a concert tonight. I'm seeing one of my all-time favorites, Liz Phair. It's her 30th anniversary Exile in Guyville tour, and I'm going to Denny's tonight for dinner because it's right next to the venue. Meeting my friend Brian Tiller and Jarena and our friend Frank for dinner there. But for lunch, it's going to be mini tacos from Trader Joe's. Just warm them up in the well, I'm going to go oven. I'm going to go oven today because I'm classy.
Oh yeah, I think I'm going to have ramen noodles for lunch. And then all of my Puerto Rican relatives are in town. And so that there's probably going to be pork and rice at some point. Let's see here. I just thought this was fun. Thank you, Nick, for this donation. I sang Bar to the tune of the Jaws theme. And then Big Lou's here.
Big Lou!
Love that you guys are doing this show. I always feel smarter, wiser. I was listening to you guys. I'm not responsible for anything that you gain from us via osmosis. But look, hey.
Let me say that's a great. By the way, Lou is great, and Lou's I think Lou and Dan from The Food in My Beard should get together to write a cookbook as well. I love that you say that, Lou, smarter and wiser. One of the reasons my fear behind even starting the show is I'm not the smartest on this. I'm not the wisest on this. I get up every day and much like an old person 30 years ago, taking the newspaper and reading what's going on. I watch the Fifth Column. I watch Majority Report. I'll even check in on some of the other ones from time to time. And I try to learn. I'm just fascinated by it. It started with, for me, the big change was relearning history and re-seeing things as a kid who grew up in the 80s, the Satanic Panic going strong, and with parents pretty much raised in the 50s, which was the height of the moral panic post-war, and getting so many stories. You mentioned the Foundation of America, highly complicated issue in history. Got it. But I was raised with story was told. We won the West. Didn't you watch the movie How the West Was Won? There you go. And by the way, that's not a slight against movies, because also I was part of the large group of people that learned about the Tulsa massacre, the Tulsa race riots from a TV show in 2020. And I remember having some absolute pain of going, why wasn't I told that? Why?
I remember looking at my then partner. I looked at her and said, is this real history? Like, I've never felt so gobsmacked by an event that significant, having been in nothing. And it's not like they didn't show us stuff. We watched our fair share. We watched, Glory, Amistad, like tons of films about change and about significant moments and about Black history. And yeah, to get that from Damon Lindelof's Watchmen sequel was such a what? Which I guess is a great way to start to get into entertainment.
Yeah, great way to seg into our main topic here. Alden, I'm going to cut you off only because I really worked hard at making sure I had some photos to bring up when we talked, and I haven't brought up like one of them. So there you go. We're segging into news, our main topic, or segging out of news into our main topic. And Alden, take us away. What do we got? What are we diving into?
Well, we got one question here from Tully Quinn that we will get to. Ken, what are your thoughts on the new Beatles song as a super chat? Let's include that in this. So we'll get to the new Beatles song. The Beatles topping the charts in 2023. It sounds unreal, and yet it is very real. Dua Lipa has a new song. The SAG strike has ended, our core story. David Zaslav is still a menace. There's a lot going on. And look at this man.
This is my favorite because he went to Boston University to give a speech, and he thought, I'm going to be the coolest mother trucker in the room. And I got my shades on, and I got my robe on. I got my unbuttoned light blue dress shirt on, and they booed the bleep out of him at the start of the writer's strike. It's still one of my favorite photos.
What a exceedingly disappointing human being. He's just like, it's a parody at this point. Like he is truly a parody. So we'll talk about that. And then, yeah, but really let's start with this. There's some stuff about AI. There's some stuff about Marvel being back. It feels like every project, it's all dead and it's not. And yet nobody calls for Kevin Feige's job like they do Kathleen Kennedy. I wonder why that is. But let's start here.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead. What is it?
Oh, I'll tell you later.
Okay, gotcha. It's a secret. You got to subscribe to know. Ken,
subscribe to my grift.
Ken, you're pretty close to Sag-Aftra, I would say, given as that you are, as like I said, a coastal elite. But in more serious terms, you're SAG eligible. You co-host with a SAG person. You are engaged to a SAG member. You have SAG deals. You've worked with SAG shoots. This was an unprecedented moment in history. What is the vibe like over there right now? And let's talk about this. Give me that personal feel, and then we can get into the deal itself.
Yeah. Look, elation, right? Finally being over 118 days. Writers Guild before that. Directors Guild for 2 seconds before they settled earlier. TAG is next. The Animation Guild. A lot of the other, set unions and that kind of Yahtzee and all that stuff. This is just a part of a larger picture. It's not without its weird challenges. At the start of the strike, I remember I was texting you. SAG ain't perfect, and SAG has done some things that have upset me and have upset my partner and affected some careers, and no union's perfect. And I have a complicated relationships with unions where I'm very pro-union now, but I didn't grow up that way because my first experience with a union was at 17 being cornered by 3 union reps at my dishwashing job who threatened me to join on, I don't want to say physical violence, but they literally cornered me up against a wall. And that didn't seem right. I didn't understand it. And then as a public safety director at one point, for 4 years, I was the director of security at the farmers market in Hollywood, 3rd and Fairfax, which is the land in which the Grove rents from, which is owned by Rick Caruso, who was in the news last year or so running for the mayor of LA, trying to buy his way up there. And construction unions protested often because Caruso affiliated, you seem to have a lot of non-union construction projects there. I don't know the 100% details of that. And I had to deal with the strike teams that would go out to kind of cause problems, literally threatening physical violence, getting in your face, recording you, a guy in a rat costume on roller skates skating around you, trying to get you to punch him. So I just, and being raised, conservative and a Reagan Republican, that was our house. Reagan famously going, air traffic controllers, you want to go on strike? You're fired. I was, at times I would even say I was anti-union. I'm not anymore. And this strike was part of it. The SAG, AFTRA, and WGA guilds striking is part of a larger problem going on. And you talk about the coastal elites. I had some conversations with family members who were like, I'm not supporting this strike. I don't support millionaires asking for more money. And I was like, do you think Grace is a millionaire? Do you think that's why she's on strike? You think that's why she voted for it? Do you think that all my other friends, do you think we're millionaires? Do you think that's why we're doing this? This is a work issue. This is a labor issue. This is no different. The deal points are different, but it's no different than auto union strikes, railway, any other those kind of industries. And it's one of those things where you talk about the coastal elites. We're the artists on the coast. and no one's going to make computer images of our faces, but we're no different than the guy and the lady and the families who are trying to survive working in these industries that are affected in quote unquote middle America. And that's one of the things that I took from this, and one of the things that really changed me during these last 118 days and plus, because of the Writers Guild. And it's also been frustrating. I also have a little anger, and I also I've seen a podcast that I'm part of, Force Center, struggle as we upheld the strike, which was an easy decision for us at the end of the day. So it's a complicated tableau of ideas, Alden.
Absolutely. And let's touch on that, because I teased this. This was our first Anytime social media tease. I'm really annoyed by influence. I have been really annoyed by influencer culture.
You
yes,
you seem
shockingly.
like such a calm, reasonable young man.
That's what they say. Look, we're not gonna name names until we do a late night show, until we do an alcohol edition. But there has been I mean, look, we have some mutual friends. You know, we're both friends with Alex Backus, the director of That's Our Time short film that's out there right now, Black Series Rebels. I was talking to Alex, and Alex was on strike. This man has been SAG since he was like a late teens, like, yeah. and his wife Sarah, you know, a writer, an actress on AMC, and we were talking about this when it first happened, talking about this is unprecedented because during the last strikes there was not really like the writer strike of 2007 was like the birth of podcasts. That's when there was like Kevin Smith and Corolla, and that's it. There was none of this. Yeah. So now it's like to see the entire, especially like in these film and television spaces, to see so many people come out of the woodwork now that it's over and be like, finally, I can talk about how much I liked The Path to Peridia. I could talk about how much I loved, how much I hated Secret Invasion, whatever it is. Like, it is so baffling to me that these people think that that was work. And I say this as somebody, as well as you, my Star Wars show has been on hold since August 5th. And that show, that episode was publishing related. Force Center entirely pivoted away. And then you have these people that are out there now like, you know, I'm so proud of everybody that took a principled stand. And it's like, okay, so here I am, and here you are, two guys that took that stand. I'm here to tell you, don't use this as morality clout. That's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. We have friends that depend on their channels and everything to pay their bills. People were put in a tough spot. Broadcasting is a real thing. I know there are people out there that think that we're just sitting around doing a hobby, but like this becomes.
I put on a coat today.
You put on a coat. You put on a coat. He put the tacos on hold. He's not having the tacos till later. And people think that this is not real, but it is real. It's a lot more complicated than that. And you had people out there like, why is this YouTube channel scabbing? First of all, it's not what scabbing is. That's not what a scab is. And it's just become this, like, the strikes became an opportunity for people to be performative. And even now that they're over, people are being performative. And it's gross, it's stupid, and the influencer culture is just mind-blowing. Like, you'll have people that were posting about their Star Wars toys the entire strike that are now like, we can now share our Ahsoka reactions that we recorded, that we didn't post out of solidarity because what? That's not real.
Yeah. Yes. I'm trying to make sure I both agree with you and understand it in full, because I'm with you on it. But this is life, right? This is what I always say when my employees used to come to me at my old job, and there'd be an employee on, fighting with another employee, and they'd be like, "Why is everything so high school?" I'm like, "Well, because high school's life. It never stops. You're going to be trust me. I worked in a convalescent retirement home. My mom did for years too. You think that stops? It does not stop. Bert and Doug are going to fight in the kitchen or the cafeteria at the retirement home at 90 because Gertrude didn't pay attention to Bert. Like, trust me, it happens. I think you have to watch for that. I think it's okay to let it exist. I think it's okay when it needs to be called out. I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw people going to fan events, which was really just a fancy word for press event, hiding behind the press term. Now there's actual people in press. friends of ours who this was their job, and it's not what SAG asked for. You know, it was you got to pay attention to the rules. You also got to make the decision what was right for yourself. Force Center, we've gone into detail about why, and you know, at the end of the day, Jen was SAG, and we weren't going to leave her behind. And we also were going to do what we felt was right, and we're excited. We're posting pictures, are going there too, but it's the intent behind it. And I think that's kind of the state of the world. And it's like these politicians we're talking about who are just out there building their brand based on events and stuff they can get behind. So I agree with it. I know it frustrates you a lot, and it does frustrate me as well. And that's what these situations do.
Absolutely. And it's like, like the idea of you guys now bringing back Force Center proper now the strike is over. Imagine if you just decided to heel turn and just said, well, insert YouTube channel that everybody loves that's run by our friends. Like, you guys didn't stop and we did. So that means that we were the, like, it makes no sense. Like, people didn't understand what was being asked for. Yeah, it's just it's baffling.
Yeah, no, that's a great point we can this I'll tell you what, this strike has turned me it's maybe a little bitter. A little bit. I'm always bitter. I'm always grumpy. I'm a curmudgeon, but it's maybe a little bitter about the state of the Star Wars podcasting world and the space. And I have to find out how best for me to replug in going forward. You know me, I've always been a little distant from the Star Wars podcasting space, for better or worse, because there's some wonderful people and there's some not so wonderful people. But it's maybe cost me from being super close to some of the folks out there that maybe I should, because the whole podcasting space, as it sprung up around people like me, and I'm not taking credit for building the space, but I was there in 2013, there in 2014, and to watch it build up. And I love that because I love all the new voices and new takes and new perspectives. Sometimes I just do this, Alden. I just go, I'm going to go play Madden. I'll see y'all later. I'm going to go watch some football. Bye-bye. That's what this has done.
Yeah, 100%. So I just want to get that little rant in there. But in terms of, you know, and trust me, there will be more influencer content creator rants and everything going down the road. But in terms of the actual
highlights of PLD, empathy is the lost art. Being right has become more important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Unless it's me in a Twitter fight with somebody, then being right is the most important thing. Which will be that will be a segment down the road, no doubt.
There was one Saturday morning recently, I woke up and I saw something and I was so angry. I was so angry at this person with something they had said. But then I saw that you were going to war with them and you were having coffee in your backyard with your dog. That I just sat back and went, this is my SummerSlam.
Yep. Sometimes you just send me into battle because I will come home. You don't have to worry about me. I'll be fine. But yeah, the deal itself.
The deal. I'll be honest. Can I say something? I haven't taken a point by point look at the deal. I just like.
I also think I don't know if it's because the social media teams for each guild are just different or whatever. The writers were way more like, here's what we got. Boom, boom, boom. The actors not as much, but they did say it was valued a deal valued at $1 billion. And
I'll tell you why, because the writers went, all right, here's our plot structure, and then the actors went, we have secured a deal. That's what.
Because as you said, high school never ends, and theater kids will theater kid forever. I say that as a former theater kid. It's not a pejorative. It definitely feels like the AI protections. I mean, the fact that we're even having that conversation. There's a comment here from my friend here, my good friend Samantha Cabeza, one of my favorite people who I actually know from high school, brings up the whole idea of the gaming and animation industry and the possibility of striking for better working conditions. Love to know our thoughts. That ties in with it because we have these AI victories here, but then Katzenberg, DreamWorks co-founder, comes out and is like, yeah, I could see 90% of the animation industry going toward AI. He should also be labeled Quibi co-founder forever. He should have to wear that.
Hey, I'll defend Quibi. It almost changed our lives for an amazing, great level in this house. If Quibi had lasted, I'd have 3 coats.
3 coats.
Because I saw Charlie Ashby, a little poor pauper in UK, just begging for a coat. I love you, Charlie. I'll send you a coat. Said, can you have a coat? He's joking. So I wish Quibi worked. I just want to say that. But yes, to your point, Katzenberg saying that. And there's, I read the whole article, by the way. I'm trying to read articles these days, Alden, not just headlines. And I know you are. Anyway, go on. I cut you off there. I want to also shout out this curmudgeon, Mark Ellis, who just said, get me back at Wood Ranch is what he just said right there.
The dog stepfather himself, Mark Ellis,
is the guy.
Oh, love that
guy.
Anyways, yeah. So in terms of that, like
Samantha's question,
yes,
I absolutely think there should be sort of a strike. There absolutely should be. TAG needs to strike. That's the Animation Guild. And by the way, because I saw a great comment from Laserbolt Videos earlier that, hey, you know, one of my issues with unions is the George Lucas issue. You can become the power that you once fought again pretty quickly. There's a, you know, if you write a animation script, if you're a writer on an animation show and it's not considered prime time, you don't get to be in WGA. They don't consider it a WGA thing. You have to be in tech, and they all need to come together and work going forward. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you've ever seen somebody, I mean, we're not going to tell tales out of school about people that we know, but Mark Bernardin, great writer, he said this publicly, so we can repeat it. You're negotiating on some of these roles in the most arbitrary ways that a writer like him that comes from comics, you know, people that go from animation and they head into live action, they head into that WGA world. They're like, well, your contributions are more of a story supervisor contribution. And it becomes so, even if you saved the script because you came in via this path, it becomes very, very difficult. So no, Brian, the Saturday morning cartoons are not WGA.
And it goes beyond to where, you know, even, you know, Clone Wars or Forces of Destiny, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Not WGA.
Yeah. Rebels, all that story came out about how Rebels was broken in the room and how it was designed. And yeah, I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender, that trailer came out in the post strike ending news blast and looks gorgeous, looks amazing. And the writers of this one will get things that the writers of the original will never get because this is a live action, that's animation. So yes, Samantha, gaming animation should absolutely be striking. I believe the SAG contract for game voiceover, a strike was authorized, but has not yet happened. And now that Xbox is teaming up to do AI NPCs and dialogue and quests, I think it should happen. And I know we both know a lot of people in game voices and things like that. And we're seeing a labor moment.
Yeah, it's a big labor moment. It's a movement. We are in our second gilded age here as a country, and we don't want the new generation of Rockefellers to keep stamping out all of us. And I think that's what's going on here. And as much as I said in the past that even, you know, I had grew up with different takes on unions. Like even like when the baseball players striked in '94, I was on their side. I was on their side because I don't care if they already were making obscene amounts of money. The owners were making even more than that. The richest owner in baseball was the owner of the Minnesota Twins, and he continued to put no money into his franchise and sink that franchise for a while, and almost sink that city as a baseball team. So you know, if I could hit a baseball 600 feet and there's a market for it, I want what is my share, because we have set up this free market society, which I still want to believe in. It makes sense on paper. I don't think we've ever been truly a free market society. It's been rigged from the start. And so I think that's a lot of what's going on right now and what you're seeing here in this town. The danger is, and we're going to talk about this in depth on another show. And I have a buddy, another Ken that I want to bring in for this one, of the conversation of disruption is actually destruction, which is something that my friend Ken Plume has said before online. And that is the fear I have right now, Alden. My final big thought on this is you got idiots like Zaslav going around just shelving movies for tax credits, completed, well test scored movies for tax credit, as we learned with the Cena James Gunn led Wile E. Coyote picture. I am worried about a little bit going forward as is the new normal, and you always have to try to embrace the new normal and find out what's next. Man, as someone who was in radio at the end of radio as we knew it for decades, the 90s, and watch that crumble around me and around those in the industry, I'm slightly afraid of what we got going on here. And it's okay. I don't mind if a company like Disney's like, hey, we're not going to make as many shows as we used to. I don't mind that. That makes sense. But I'm I'm just afraid of this strike is over. What is actually left in this industry? What kind of jobs will there be? It could have been destroyed.
It's horrifying. It's horrifying because you have to think big and scale down. If you look at the Wile E. Coyote situation, even more so than I'm not gonna say even more so. The Batgirl situation was gross for different reasons. 2 directors of color, Latina Batgirl, and that gets shelved, but Flash gets put through despite the criminal element. Like that, that's a different situation. But the Wile E. Coyote thing, you got to keep in mind, this movie was written by James Gunn, who is the head of one of their subsidiaries now. He is the head of a division. He's a co-CEO of DC Studios who writes this with a property that helped build Warner, the Looney Tunes. So if this can get canned for 30 million tax write-off, like it wouldn't have made that even in toys, is horrifying. Because what does that mean? Like James Gunn, one of the most successful and beloved white guys in Hollywood, can't get a legacy property through with John Cena. That's terrifying. If that's considered easily cut. And I'm glad that composers and stunt people are posting their work from the movie.
Oh yeah,
I love it. I love it, and I hope it's causing a headache. And I hope that, one of the things that we have just in our news notes here, Superman set to shoot in March. Yeah, I trust James is going to make an incredible Superman movie. I have no doubt he's walking onto that set less thinking about a universe and more thinking about, okay, they've already screwed me and I haven't even started yet.
Yeah, and I hope, look, it's a reality, and I'm not saying anything that isn't out there of people like Zaslav aren't in the movie business, right? I saw this. This is something I absolutely saw. I wish I could remember who said it, so I give them credit. But I'm a fan of the 1990 motion picture Pretty Woman. You might have heard of the picture. I know it has some sex in it. Alden in your generation apparently doesn't like sex on screen anymore, according to articles I read. We're going to discuss that in more detail on the show at some point soon. Richard Gere's character, Edward Lewis, he is a part of a company that buys other companies that are failing, and he destroys the companies and he breaks apart these companies that do things, and that's his job. And then his big emotional turn is deciding, as a kid, I used to want to build things. I destroy things now, and that's the big change, and that's the big turnabout in that film. Other than he and Vivian fall in love in 6 days, it's a touching tale, Alden. I see that that's what's going on here. And look, this might be unpopular right now. I think Bob Iger is someone who actually has an interest in art. I actually think he does. It's one of the reasons I was positive about him for a long time. I think he showed some true colors of his sweaters recently. But Zaslav does not strike me as someone who even knows what art is. And these are corporations. These are stockholders calling the shots. And this kind of stuff is when I say the second Gilded Age, this is that thing that we should be fighting against. Spotify just raised their bar for paying out podcasts, like I talked about, also songs. I understand it to a certain degree. Like I said earlier, you don't want to cut a bunch of 22-cent checks. Got it. But the ability, they have the how we got our art has been disrupted, and we all adapt to these new ways. And the powers that be just destroy it all, and it's important. You might think we're a coastal elite with a turtleneck sweater reading our poetry, but you're all enjoying art. It's all part of this world, and it's important to see ourselves through it, whether you see that or not, whether you have media literacy or not. And that's this kind of stuff. Literally the day or so after the strike ends, right? This news of the Wile E. Coyote film comes out, and I just think there's going to be more of that until a second round of fighting, not necessarily a strike, but until second round of Margot Robbie saying, I ain't going to work with you anymore. I just had $1 billion film. I ain't going to work with you anymore. I think that kind of stuff needs to start happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. There needs to be some sort of strong stance. Do I think we're going to get a 90s indie revolution like we did, or a second auteur revolution? Not necessarily, but I hope that the next, like, Rodriguez, Tarantino, Kevin Smith era comes around, where you get, and even people that are less sung from that era, like Catherine Bigelow's, like people that will go outside of the studio system. You would hope that it happens, and This is the stuff that Scorsese's actually talking about. He's not talking about how much he hates Captain America and Iron Man. Like,
yeah. It can be a crotchety old man sometimes. I don't like Iron Man. Sure, but that's never been his point. And the Screen Rants of the world, and I don't even know if they actually, I apologize, Screen Rant, if you didn't actually do it, but those who spin the Scorsese interviews out into old man versus superheroes, you're missing the point of what he's saying and missing the point of what's going on. We're both making wonderful points, Alden, but I'm not leaving in this segment until you address this comment. Gen Zs don't like sex; they like Germans who bring them pizza.
I like both, and I'm a cut off millennial, so I resent being lumped in with them, David. Where we are going to dive into that topic. It is actually really fascinating and weird. But yeah, no, I like all that stuff, and I like Scorsese, and I almost cried at the Loki finale. You can like all of it. You can like all of it.
You can.
Yeah, and then it's immediately like it's been hard. When something like the Coyote situation happens, it's hard to enjoy the victory maybe in the way people wanted to, but it is nice to see artists that had to take this period and not discuss things they're proud of be able to share that. So that's been really cool, and it's been cool to see people with a let's get back at it and celebrate each other. And it's also very funny, admittedly, to see SAG and WGA members celebrating while also making fun of DGA members. That is very funny.
Well, yeah, but even then, there's so many DGA members who were like, bad deal, vote no, and they lost it. Kingsport Cal says Swingers started the indie revolution. I don't know if that's 100% true, but Swingers is one of my all-time favorite movies, so I'm not going to disagree. A couple things left here. We're going to start closing out the show. Alden and I are only 30 minutes over our time, so we're doing actually pretty good. Alden, you want to swing through some of the pop culture stuff you had listed, and then we'll go take ourselves home with our final segments here.
Yeah, let's start with the most important thing that ever happened. Dua Lipa has a new song out. It's called Houdini.
I heard it this morning.
Woo! Lord, so good. Listen to it like 6 times in a row. Watch the new video.
Does she like German pizza? Because I think you want her to.
God, I hope. I think she's only like 4 months older than me or something like that. So, we're both right there.
You youngsters.
It's the new song and the first song of the Dua Lipa 3 era, because we don't have the album title yet. I've been loving that. Houdini, check out the video. It's amazing. Yeah. Beetlejuice 2 almost done filming. Superman filming in March. James Mangold's Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, to start filming early next year. Pixar's Inside Out 2 got a trailer. Avatar: The Last Airbender got a trailer. And Marvel is both dead and in flames, but also back and greater than ever at the same time. It's amazing.
That is part of where I'm at of my relationship to fandom right now. I can't wait to get back to diving deep into Star Wars. I'm going to talk some Star Wars news on Force Center, all that kind of stuff coming very soon. But I think the pause of the strike allowed me to pull back from a lot of that. And I don't engage with a lot online anyways. I have a lot of those words muted. I always I quite frankly brag. I have Star Wars muted on my Twitter feed. It just means it's why I got out of sports talk. I'm a big sports fan. I'm back. I'm back. I'm watching football again. I'm watching baseball again. But I left all that about 5, 6, 7, even 10 years ago, because I got tired of listening to the fandoms have these kind of discussions. It is a whiplash. It is all about who is right. It is all about what predictions. It's all about these kind of silly things. And this MCU is dead. MCU is not. I'm not a giant fan of MCU, but I can tell you that it's a lot of these most recent movies have been misunderstood. Whether or not they're as good as the previous ones, that could be a legitimate critique. But the ideas behind them are not being discussed. The ideas, the actual thematic reasons that are the thematic stories and points. That drives me crazy, and I just don't care. I just don't care. I enjoy it if you want. If you think it's dead, put red eyes in your thumbnail and enjoy your life. I just don't want to hear you anymore.
Yeah. It's a very. This could be a whole show, and maybe it will be. Fandom has become corrupted with a "what have you done for me lately" mentality, where people didn't like Ant-Man. That was in February, right? So it was all over. But then in May, we got Guardians, which people say is their best film ever. But in November 2022, we got Black Panther 2, which people loved. Then we get a show people didn't really like. And now we get a show that people say is the best finale they've ever done. And all those things can be true. It doesn't mean it's all like 32 films. It doesn't mean, maybe 33 now with Marvel's. It doesn't mean anything. And Marvel's is going to underperform. We've all accepted this as a numerical mathematical fact. It's going to underperform, but
for so many reasons.
But exactly, like you think that's a creative thing and not a the three women that we built this thing around couldn't say anything about it thing. I think that's way more likely. And then, all the societal stuff that comes around Brie Larson, the boogeyman of the right. It's just
she gonna get you.
Yeah, it's gross and it's frustrating. But yeah, about Jerry in the comments, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire gets a trailer. So everything is firing now. Some adjusted release dates, but things we're back.
This is my buddy Ken Bloom. Subscribe to his channel, and we're going to get Ken on for the disruption is actually destruction conversation. It's often the discourse around the film to TV that is exhausting, not the art itself. And that's where I'm at. That's where I got with Star Wars. The break that I was forced to take from Star Wars affected me in a weird way, where I'm not sure how much I want to jump back in, because I just kind of liked existing in a world where I didn't have to hear people misunderstand what the word cameo means and misunderstand or racist dog whistle takes around Reva. It was nice not to hear all of it for a while, to be honest.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And we've had some intense personal heart-to-hearts about fandom and how we when you fixate on a thing for a long time, sometimes your love for it, like any relationship, romantic or otherwise, could sort of ebb and flow. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things going forward. And the presence of entertainment on this show won't be as in depth or as full as, because we are still doing our other shows, but no doubt we'll be talking about things we've watched and things like that. And we've got ideas for how to cover that, whether that's monthly, maybe twice a month. We'll see how it goes, but we'll check in with Ken on what Ken Burns documentary he's watching and check in with
All right. We are pretty soon we'll have motion graphics, all those things. I had a busy week. I couldn't get everything I wanted. Also, I have no skills as a motion graphics designer. We're going to start moving into some of our final segments, and I'm just randomly pressing theme songs. This is a segment we're calling Your Week Ahead. This is where, because we broadcast on Fridays, we try to predict the news headlines that might show up in the next week or so. I've got a few, Alden, you toss in any you want here. Another brick will fall in the mystery around Mike Johnson's finances. That's one of the other things I mentioned up top we didn't really get into. He's a man of modest means. He also seems to have no checking accounts, saving accounts, money, little reported here. I think this is a tip of the iceberg thing, and I think more is going to come from that. I also think aliens will still exist. Some want them to be, yet the grift will go on for what's going on. This is the story that just emerged before we broadcast today. Shankar Patrick stepping aside at the end of the year as the head of this government committee. Kind of, you've been hearing all about investigating these things. It's a complicated issue. I recommend you check out Stephen Greenstreet on Twitter, a reporter who covers a lot of this. Mick West, if you want to get into the debunking of the Tic Tac videos and all those kind of things. There might be aliens. They might show up my front door and want to party with me. I don't think anything these whistleblowers are doing, and I think that's going to exist. Final one for me. Ron DeSantis will drop out of the race for second place in the GOP presidential nominee race, but he will launch a new line of internal high-heel cowboy boots for the discerning short man. I think. We'll see. All right. Any for you? You want to predict? I'm throwing this on you.
I would like to say that Marvel will die and be resurrected about 4 more times. I will say that things ranging from Domino's Pizza to taking basic Flintstones vitamins will be labeled woke. I think that's coming for us. And I think that you will have to trade that code in for food and water as society continues to collapse in a post-strike world.
In a post-strike world. Our final 2 segments of the day, we're going to do this every week. It's what Ben Affleck are we, and a pop rock word of wisdom to leave on. We've got this one, Alden. What Ben Affleck are we this week?
We are probably the saddest Ben Affleck that's ever existed. Why don't you pull up that image and I'll tell you why.
It's up.
No, okay, sorry. My computer's a little bit lagging behind because I'm having a battery issue.
Going. It's okay.
This Ben Affleck image is the saddest thing that ever happened because he's holding a Starbucks cup, which, as we know, Ben Affleck, the Bostonian, he's going through something because that is a Duncan diehard.
He's a Duncan diehard indeed. I love, and this very much is pro Affleck. I love these photos that emerge from him, just living, existing. This is a man who's like, it's a Thursday and I don't know what to do with my life. I just want this cup. And this is even the cup of coffee I wanted. And I think we all have been there, especially in this post-strike world.
Absolutely. I think that he's settling and he's going through something, but I believe in you, Ben. Ben is like a phoenix. He will be back.
Like Marvel, he will be back. Final segment, Pop Rock Word of Wisdom to leave on, sponsored by Pop Rock and Radio, the show I do on Mixcloud Live most Saturday nights. Check it out over there. This is from one of our favorites, Hayley Williams, Paramore, Caught in the Middle, 2017. I'm just a little bit caught in the middle, Alden. I try to keep going, but it's not that simple. I think I'm a little bit caught in the middle. Got to keep going or they'll call me a quitter. Yeah, Alden, I'm caught in the middle.
I love her. She's a prophet. She's an angel of our times. And there will be more Hayley Williams presence on this show. Will she ever appear on this show? You can dream.
That's our goal. That's one of our goals. No, I absolutely love that song. It also inspires the greatest dance of all time at a rock show. And I know it's written from a younger perspective, maybe more your generation. Sometimes you're feeling young, you're feeling old, you don't know which way to go. But I kind of feel that right now in both career, life. What's next? I don't know. I feel caught in the middle. And no, I don't need no help. I could sabotage myself pretty easily there. So that is about it, Alden. I think we did it. We did it. We got through the first show of Anytime with Ken and Alden. Any parting thoughts or questions we might want to still get to?
My parting thoughts is that we are with you all the time, anytime, you might say. You can hit us up on all of our socials at Anytime On Air. Doesn't have to be on a Friday. We'd love to start a conversation with you, engage with us. And thank you so much for the super chats. We're going to work out, segments wise, if we want to bang them all out at once in the future. Really appreciate the support. Those of you, we've had great eyes on this, great conversations in the comments, and really excited about the future.
Really excited indeed. Thanks for hanging with us as we pilot episode here. I'm shocked that Ken and Alden talked for a long time. It's never happened in the recorded history of podcasts. That's it. We'll see you all. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can build it over there. See you, friends. Bye.